Hello and welcome to WrestleSphere. This is one of our first interviews with an indie wrestler from the UK scene. We've got Ace Matthews today, aka the Tidal Chief. I see what you did there. Did you know, Ace? First of all, I've got to bring this to your attention. There's a big Samoan guy who's copying your gimmick. Lives in Florida, right? Lives in Florida. He'll be in LA, I believe, this April. Where I'm going to be in LA this April. Do you want me to have a word with him and say, listen, you know, this guy never dries his hair either. He's constantly
Does he
got
know?
wet hair, and gives people fist bumps. He's not a very nice guy. I'm not a fan. I'm not going to lie, but I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. Really with this guy. Yeah, but
It happens a lot, to be fair. If there's one thing you can say about me, though, it's I always dry my hair. So
yeah, good
that's
because
why everyone loves me, though.
it's about being professional, isn't it? And this guy just doesn't seem to get it. I'm glad you understand. You are the one true
Hmm.
title chief. So we're here today really to discuss you and your win. So first of all, am I right in thinking your primary stomping ground is Tidal Pro Wrestling, where you are top of the card?
Yeah, it appears so that I am the chief, the chief of title, the title chief. Um, and I mean, I have been for years, but officially recognised as a title chief for the last few months, or from the end of last year into now, and going forward for as long as for as long as anyone dares.
But I saw on Twitter today you were basically basking in your followers and being like, when your title chief speaks, you all be quiet. So it's good to see that they've got the belt on the right man, and everything's going well there. So talk me through how you got your hands on the belts, and what happened there in Tidal Pro Wrestling.
So, I've been working for Tidal on and off for many, many years. Um, one of the first places I started working there was there through started traveling with Dara Diablo, who is currently a foolish man who's snapped his Achilles. Who does that? Anyway, he's done it twice, and he's currently on there for the second time. But yeah, for plenty of time I was working there. I started on work on my own, and I was tagging with Dave Graves as Go Team Sports. Dave Graves has since become a title champion and retired. And then, sort of since lockdown, I've been quite a regular fixture there, having all sorts of different matches there, and eventually in the final show of the previous owner's reign, I was in a ladder match for the number one contendership to win a contract to win the championship. In the ladder match, there was only one ladder. The ladder was about 2 or 3 feet tall. And yeah, I think I skillfully, I was against H.G. Draco, I skillfully put myself in a position where, as he was trying to hit the contract down because he couldn't reach it because it was such a way off the ground and we had such a small ladder, it it landed right where I predicted it would, straight into my hands, making me the
Perfect.
number one contender. Absolutely perfect. Probably the best end to a match you've ever seen and you ever will see. Until my next defense, obviously. And then thought, you know what, when's better than now, just to cash it in right at the end. Brady Phillips was defended against Will Cruz in quite an epic match, and as soon as that was done, popped out and you know crowned myself. Well, no, the fans crowned me the title chief. So
So it's how's Tidal been as a home team in recent years? Because obviously it's with the industry and everything, with the whole world closing down for a few years, and bit by bit we're all crawling back out. Has that it's changed a lot for a lot of wrestlers about where they live, where they work. How's that impacted your relationship with Tidal?
it's been great. I mean, they've had many different venue changes for all sorts of different reasons, going from I think I started when it was at the university, or one of the universities. It was a really good venue there. The lift was very, very popular. Um, then it moved to the academy. They went to academy, and they had some really big shows there. That was a lot of fun and a really good experience to work there. And then we moved to a church with no electricity. That was cool. Very cold. And then finally to the last place, which was sorry, I have a cat charging around thinking she's a horse. Um, then the last place as well, which was like a vegan cafe bar, which was awesome. It was a really, really good venue for Tidal. Unfortunately, after COVID, that either isn't going or something happened,
No.
and it moved to it's a split placement between the parish in Huddersfield, which tends to be the main place now, and the museum in Leeds, which was really cool and different to wrestling in an actual museum. Um, yeah, that's one to tick off a bucket list that I never knew I have to wrestle in a museum. But yeah, but then obviously there's new ownership and they've been great so far. There's been some issues with some people. I've not had any problems with them. They've dealt with me really well. Some really good communication with them. Um, yeah, things seem promising. The first show back was sold out. It was absolutely packed in there. There was some nice little changes, introduction of a ring announcer and a nice little stage setup, and yeah, it was really nice to have it going again and for to have such a positive sort of relaunch show from them.
So let's talk a little bit about you and the man behind Ace Matthews, the man behind the champ. So let's go back. When did obviously, because most wrestlers love the business they're in, where did your fandom begin here? Talk me through the origins of you in wrestling.
Well, I think I've got a similar story to most people, which sounds boring, but where as a kid, my first love was football. And then I don't know exactly where I discovered wrestling. But I remember it being a thing talked about with my friends and finding it on Channel 4 on Sky. And I think this was WCW was on somewhere on Sky before it was on Channel 5, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was
because
on like Cartoon
I used to
Network
watch it
or
on Channel
TNT or
5.
something.
Yeah, I used to watch it
Yeah,
on 5. Yeah.
it was on both, and then it moved to Channel 5, and then all of a sudden it turned like Batman when they started hitting with each other, and it came up with Biff and Pow. Um, so it was in that sort of era. It was late 90s when people sort of our age seemed to have come in, like in middle of the Attitude Era there. So it was a good time to get into wrestling. And followed it through. It was sort of the big feud for me there was the Rock and Triple H through the early 2000s, I think that was. And then fell out of it a little bit sort of after Brock Lesnar came. I got a little bit older. Didn't watch it very much for a few years. At that point there, it was always a thing of be amazing to be a wrestler, but look at these guys. Like that's impossible. No one can look like that. No one can do that sort of thing. Where do you even train? How do you become a wrestler? And then when I went to university, my first year, there were two guys there who I lived with, Steve and Dan, who could be initially credited with burdening the wrestling world with me, bringing me back into it. They were huge fans, and because I was a huge fan, sort of, apart from the last couple of years before that, fell back into it. Ended up staying up watching it with them every week. We went to a few live events there as well. I sort of never looked back from there. I did do sort of a little bit of acting. I'm not very good at acting. A little bit of acting back then in just like an amateur dramatics group, sort of from my age about 15. And there was a girl there whose brother is or was a referee. That's AJB if you're in Hull, who's works with NGW there, and put me into contact with him. And then he said, "Yeah, there's a school in Hull. You should come down sometime." I ended up going to a show there with him. Introduced me to Nathan because I watched that and I was like, "He's amazing, absolutely brilliant." Then started training. I think it was about 9 years ago, which is like, wow. So
How old were
started
you?
training there. I would have been about 23, 24.
Ah, right. Okay, good. Cool. That's what a lot
Um,
of people get in, don't they? In their early 20s. Yeah.
yeah. Not like some of these guys now who are in their early 20s and are already incredible.
Yeah.
Um, disgusting people, aren't they?
You'll
So
get
yeah,
them.
so and at the time I was working in America for most of the year. So I was here when I first started. I was only here for a few weeks. I did a few training sessions with Nathan at New Generation Wrestling, and then moved across to where I was in America, in California. I was in San Jose. And before that, I'd already Googled wrestling schools because it was something I was wanting to do. That was over there. And then found one there. It was a place called Pro Wrestling Revolution. Um, and started training there. And I was training there for about 9 or 10 months until I came back and ended up moving back to the UK. That there was with a guy called Vinny Massaro and Cafu. Cafu was in the WWE developmental system, and Vinny's done a lot around there. And if you watch Beyond the Mat, he's in it in the smallest of scenes. I think he's in it twice there. Just he's one of the either young wrestlers or trainees or something around that time there. So I watched it again a couple of years ago, and I was like, I know him, and I need a couple others from there because I think that was based in California, where they were doing some of the local promotions around there. So yeah, and so it came back here and never looked back. NGW, now BWR, were sort of my bases. I was training a little bit over in Leeds as well at Grapple, and Sheffield at PPW, as well as bits and pieces around. But yeah, so New Generation Wrestling and British Wrestling Revolution have been my sort of home bases in terms of that from there.
Awesome. So obviously at the moment you're the top of the mountain where you are in Tidal. Are there any plans for the future? Anything you'd like to achieve? And feel free to dream big. If this is headlining WrestleMania, say headlining WrestleMania, or what? But what about what is it when you go to bed at night? You think, oh yeah, I'd love to do this. I'd love to do that. What are those things?
Who wouldn't? I always set it as a goal for the year, but I think this year is the big year for it. I really like to get a tryout. I've never had a tryout for WWE or AEW if that becomes a thing. I think obviously it would great to have the opportunity, but then also just to sort of see that next step, that level, and sort of find out where to go as a wrestler, as a character from this point or whatever point I'm at going forwards there. In terms of promotions, I'd like to branch out quite a lot more. So at the moment, I'm doing really well in Yorkshire and the northeast of England, but to branch out a little bit more. So a few years ago, I was doing a few over in at Future Shock and TNT. Well, I was about to do TNT, and then Dave and myself both got injured. Snapped my Achilles. Who does that? So there were a couple of times where things were starting to happen, and then things happened, obviously. But now seems to be a time that hopefully, now that I am the Tidal Chief, and I'm doing quite well in a few other places as well, to hopefully start branching out and get my name out. And yeah, so I mean, obviously a place like Progress, I think would work really well with the character. I think that would be a good place, especially seeing how well Gene Money does there.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely incredible. But I think that sort of place would do it. And I think a lot of people haven't seen the character, and I think it would annoy a lot of people.
Well, you're doing something right then. Yeah, that's the point.
Exactly, which is the whole point of doing it. So, and I think just getting that sort of reaction and just to see where it goes in different places as well. Especially people who've seen the character obviously find it quite annoying, but also it's a little bit entertaining. So people who haven't seen it before, that's one of my favorite things, is just seeing that reaction of this guy actually is really annoying. Like,
it's the best job in the world, though, isn't it? Being a heel is the best job in the world.
Yeah.
You're getting paid to be a dick to whoever you want, and it's carte blanche, and you can just be on Twitter, you can be rude to that person. It's like, I know this is all about you, but I think if someone like the biggest heel in the business at the moment is probably MJF in AEW, like that guy shouts at children in airports. That's commitment. And like, he probably feels a twinge of guilt when he does that, but at the same time, it must be so much fun. And then there's Bully Ray in Impact, who obviously like made that killed cower behind her parents a few weeks ago. So you must have it must sound like I want to terrify children. I promise you I don't. But you must have so much fun doing this stuff.
It's so much fun. I mean, when I first started wrestling, for the first few years, like I was a good guy. Um, the character came from that, hilariously. So I was a good guy, and I could wrestle as a baby face, but I just didn't feel like I had anything sort of massively unique about me. Um, and that the character came from doing promos with Nathan and cutting this babyface promo, and him standing there, and he's like, "You're just so dislikable."
That's a compliment, though. And in wrestling, that's a massive
And
compliment.
I was trying to get everyone behind me and everyone to support me. But I'm aware that I've got quite a sort of a posh, well-spoken voice. Um, so if you're watching this and you're thinking, "Wow, he's being in character on this as well," like, no, it's just me.
All the
Just
best heels of
this
themselves.
dislikable.
But that's
Yeah,
the
so
thing.
yeah, I just did the same thing. Yeah, like I think that being a good guy. I don't see why people would boo me, but apparently they do.
Means you're doing a good job. We were discussing your plans for the future and your natural heel turn, which is the best type of heel turn you can have, I suppose, because like and you mentioned your voice and being quite softly well spoken. Where aren't all the best heels articulate? Do you think they're able
Yeah,
to like Lord Gideon Grey is a good example, or whoever else?
yeah, it just rubs you up the wrong way, doesn't it? It's something about regard, regardless of what you're saying, you feel like you're being spoken down to. Um, and yeah, I think there's just something like when you get adverts on the TV or wherever, it's always a nice local accent. It's always Geordie or Yorkshire or something. But when someone comes walking out declaring that they're there to not for themselves but for everybody else, you're like, are you though? Really? Um, yeah, and that's what I really like about doing the character as well, is that instead of it just being like, oh, this is the bad guy, okay, cool, or whatever, he doesn't like things. It's genuinely quite annoying, and I think it just gives more of a hook, um, again, into myself, into people thinking, yeah, we don't like this guy, or like someone just shut him up, and immediately then whoever I'm wrestling against, it creates that immediate dynamic.
Mm.
Um, and I mean, I've always preferred watching. I mean, think as a kid watching wrestling. I'm watching The Rock or watching Chris Jericho or Bret Hart. There, I don't care if they're having a 5-star classic. Like, I just want that person to win, and having that hook into them there, a bit like watching England at the World Cup. Like every England game, if we scrape through, it doesn't matter because we win.
Yeah.
Like the final was absolutely incredible, and you enjoy watching it as a neutral, but it wasn't quite the same if England were there. Say the Euros 2 years ago
Mm.
wasn't quite as good, but it's a bigger thing for us because we're immediately rooted in there. And I think just getting that sort of reaction, or hopefully getting that sort of reaction, is just makes it a little bit more accessible for people, for kids who don't care how good the match is. I mean, obviously, I'm going to put a 5-star classic on every single time, as everyone who has ever seen me is well aware. But for the people who aren't necessarily wrestling fans, or the mums and dads who come in to watch, or say it's a Butlins or a camp show there, people aren't really into wrestling. It's just something to dig your teeth into and be like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not sure about this guy. I'm not sure about this guy. I hope yeah.
But that's often a great way of getting new fans, isn't it? Is to hook them with
Mm.
a character. Like if you're at a show like that and the kids are watching, but the parents aren't that bothered, and they're like, "Oh, wrestling's this, wrestling's that," and you start calling out one of the parents, like, "Oi, so and so, put that pint down and pay attention to your Tidal Chief." All of a sudden, he's going to be taken aback, And yeah, and that's what's so fun about wrestling, or watching it with non-wrestling fans, and them
Yeah,
seeing stuff they've never seen before. Like I showed my father-in-law a Royal Rumble, and he couldn't get his head around it, or the recent Logan Paul versus Ricochet bumping in midair. So it's great when you're able to make a non-fan into a fan, and I think heels do that. And obviously, the role of a heel, ultimately, like your job is eventually, is to become so slappable that you help somebody achieve that and create a baby face, I suppose, create a new hero. Yeah, it's almost it's a cycle, isn't it, of helping each other, I suppose.
yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, it work with each other. It just elevates everybody there. I think, regardless of where you are on the card, there having that hook in there is going to bring someone up. Especially, say my favorite spot. I mean, obviously the Tidal Chief is on last, but in general is to be on first, because I always find it very easy just to go in and to grab people in immediately. And even working with guys, either working somewhere I've never worked before or with newer guys as well, it just gives that little bit extra. I think coming back from lockdown, um, I think that was a big thing for me, in that I've been doing sort of a version of the character a little bit before that, working up in the northeast at 3CW, doing a lot of that there as Ace Athletic with Dave Graves and Benji, and figuring out what was working there.
Hmm.
Also, we did VAR first, by the way.
Oh,
Just
oh
put that
wow.
out there officially. We did VAR first. We just weren't as high tech as the I think it was the Japanese guys who did it. But then coming back from lockdown and everyone's ready to watch wrestling. Everyone seen things for so long. And then for me personally as well, coming out refreshed and having had a year and however long it was that we couldn't do shows and we couldn't do anything, just to come out and I think just to shock everyone with okay, cool, this is happening. I think that's the big that for me is sort of kicked off the way I feel like I'm doing quite well at the moment, and hopefully it will keep going. I'll
Hmm.
keep expanding, going out more. Just that big reset I think has helped and level the playing field and the characters, and then the using the social media more, a little bit more, and just they're not caring about it either. I used to be a little bit worried about the social media, and but now I'm just like, well, I just have it for fun.
Yeah, well, we spotted you. We spotted you being doing a heel tweet. That's how we came across you. So there you go. I think you
Yeah,
were. I think you were sticking the knife into Nathan Cruz, or whatever it was. But it was it got us you on our radar. Um, so let's talking about, you mentioned a list of names a little while ago about Bret Hart, The Rock,
mm.
Jericho. Now they've all been phenomenal baby faces in their time, but they've
Mm.
also been phenomenal heels at different times. So, in terms of like the heels you admire, do you model yourself on anybody, or is there anybody you think I'd love to do a little bit more of what they do, or are they copying
I
you?
think, well, obviously, I mean, in the past there, they knew what was going to come, didn't they?
Yeah, it must have been.
They knew what was coming. So when
Especially
Simon Dean
that's
came out on the D Machine with his head microphone headset, yeah,
yes, of course.
yeah, To be fair, I think Kurt Angle, Simon Dean, a little bit of Chris Jericho were sort of the biggest sort of villainous things, because I am character. Um, and regardless of what you're doing, you're going to stop and you're going to go, what is that? Um, they seem to be the big ones for me, and the ones that I've sort of based myself, or they've based themselves off, knowing that I was going to be coming around. There, these days, I think MJF and the Miz are incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah, just I mean, again, a lot of it's talking there, but just the way they hold themselves, the way they work their character through the matches, and get get those reactions, those genuine reactions of people. Are the yeah, they just know they are just them.
yeah, they are top tier pantomime villains, aren't they? And
Mm.
they're also just being themselves. It's like Miz is a great example, because bless him, he just can't work as a face, can he? They've tried so many times, but this guy is so slappable, and he's fantastic
Exactly.
at it. But there's just no point turning him ever again. So let's just keep him as this guy, this sniveling heel we love to hate. Where MJF, I think it is another one. I think he's impeccable at the moment. He's clearly modelled himself on you. But who knows? Maybe you'll get to give him a slap one day. That'd be good. Someone's going to take that belt off him. But first of all, someone's going to take yours off you. But that might be a while yet. But speaking of that, is there anybody you're worried about? Anybody working their way up the card who might be on a collision course with you? Their wave might clash into your tide?
Well, on the next show, I've got Scotty Rourke, who's been just incessantly tweeting a picture of him slipping over at 1PW. And I mean, the picture looks like he's kicking me, but, you know, I don't remember what happened. So that's clearly not what happened. So I've got to fight through him, which I'm sure, given how I managed to defend my title 3 times on the last show against Sam Bradwell, defending it 1 time against him, you know, should be 3 times easier, but who knows? The guy I've got my eyes on there, and I think in general that I think is going to have a very big year, is a guy called Vusic, who's come through our school at BWR. He's just incredible. He did lose to Scotty Rourke in a number 1 contenders match on the last show at Tidal. However, I think he's going to be sort of one of the next big things. I think Leon Slater shooting for the moon, and not far behind him. Once people start to see him and get out, he's going to be Vusic. I think he's going to,
But you're going to have to smash all their dreams, obviously. You know, at a certain point, it's nice that you give these guys the credit and, you know, these young up and comers. But at the end of the day, you know, there can only be one, can't there? There can only be. It's like the Highlander. This thing. It's like the Highlander.
There is.
So I'm trying to think what else. I think we've covered a lot of stuff. So, is there anything you'd like to talk about, or perhaps any events you might want to tell our audience about coming up, and when that might be?
So annoyingly, I've got my calendar on my phone, and I'm now using this. So the actual dates, the weekends and things, I'm going to be terrible at the dates.
That's okay. Don't worry.
But yeah, some places that you might catch me soon. So obviously, I've got that title defense in. To be fair, I don't know when this has been aired, so this might have already happened. I might have already been victorious.
Congratulations! If you have.
Thank you very much. I will be beating Scotty Rourke. I've already defeated Scotty Rourke at the next title show, Goblins and Golems. This coming weekend, you may see me at 1PW. I'd imagine they're probably going to be rolling out the red carpet for me to join the meet and greet, and you know, John Morrison will be taking his jacket off, and you know, Rhino will be there ready, be charging around with his horns out, and they'll be very excited to see me there. I have I've really got True Grit coming up, where you'll probably be seeing the greatest tag team that not only True Grit but the world may have already seen, which is Wing Commander Nash and Ace Matthews. Together, we are known as Nash Boat. Best of all time, innit? Best of all time. I've got NGW coming up in the beginning of March, BWR in a week and a half's time, where I think I will probably be becoming the new tag team champions there.
Oh wow! So lots of gold. How are you going to carry all this stuff? These things are heavy.
I've got guys who'll carry it for me. It's all right.
Oh right, that's okay. That's good to hear, because
I've got.
You know, the other day I was lucky enough to hold Josh Alexander's Impact World Championship the other day, and I was like, "How the hell did you carry this thing around?" This is why I do what I do for a living, and you guys do what you do for a living, I suppose. But yeah, it's good that you've got peons who can carry these things for you. That's what matters. Because God knows I couldn't do it. But there we are. But yeah, well, so plenty of dates coming up, and ideally plenty of gold as well. So that's great. I
I'm
think
sure. Yeah.
one thing I want to ask you about actually, because I saw this on Cage Match a couple of weeks ago when I was having a little look at your rankings and your career, some of your
Ooh.
matches, and yeah, I love that website. I can lose my life on it. So did you have a short run in CZW? Is that correct? A while ago?
No.
Oh, then that website
So
is
I
crap.
think Tidal have done stuff with CZW, so I think that's why it's
Ah, right, okay.
related with it. Who was it in there that
I
I
don't
was
know. I just
defeating?
saw the logo and thought I was lucky. Thought, oh wow, well, that's pretty prominent. So I didn't know if you had been in a barbed wire of death, or anything like
No,
that. So
no. Um, I mean, hardcore races gearing up for North at the moment. I think they're just getting themselves ready for my imminent arrival there.
good.
But no, we did have some shows there at Tidal, with quite a few guys coming across, and a lot of them they had a partnership with CZW, I think, either originally or at some point during it. But yeah, no, that's not me. To be fair, most of my matches and shows and things aren't on Cage Match because the vast majority have been sort of camp shows, NGW, All Star, Mega Slam. Um, so that's been what I've been doing for most of the last 9 years, apart from COVID and snapping my Achilles. Tore my pec once as well. That wasn't good.
Oh,
That was the one that hurt. Um, yeah,
you mentioned your Achilles. Did you used to
yeah.
go by the? I might embarrass myself a second time in 5 minutes here, but did you ever used to go by the name Achilles?
No,
The Cage
no, that's
Match
not
have
me.
let me down twice. That's twice.
So
Do,
yeah,
do you know what, Cage Match? I'm done with you. We're done. We're done. I'm going to stick to Smark Out Moment. But
that's a
there
fun
we
rib on
go.
me if someone has changed my name there to
Do you
Achilles
know
because yeah,
what?
there was a point there. Was
Because I saw that and I thought, and then when you were talking about snapping your Achilles, I thought, God, there's some irony there. But yeah, I think that might be somebody having a laugh at your expense. I'd find out who it is.
I'd imagine so. Yeah,
Go and have a look at it after this. It's up. It's on there. Previous names Achilles. I remember thinking, oh, that's cool. I wonder if there's a Greek connection. But yeah, it's on there. I'll send you the link if you want.
excellent.
But yeah, so let's one final question I've got because this is in our origins as Soundsphere, I suppose, before WrestleSphere existed. But who are you outside of the ring? What makes you tick in terms of music, movies, interests, day job before this? Give us a little bit of all of that.
Cool. Yeah. So I am from East Yorkshire, from all the surrounding areas there. I grew up in Newbold when I was originally born. I moved to South Cave, no, Ellerton, South Cave, Anlaby, um, Ellerton or Brough, one or two. It's quite, and then I'm currently living in Barton, so I'm actually across the bridge now. I'm sorry. Um, so yeah, so I grew up around there. Went to university, studied sports and exercise science. Sport and has always been my thing.
Mm.
Finished that, moved to America for 5 years, coached football there. So I was working as a coach. I had three teams. We'd coach every night and then drive around California, coaching games at weekends. It was great. Then I moved back. Strange decision to make, but yeah, I think wrestling was a big thing here to be able
Yeah.
to come back here. And plus, I trained to be a teacher then. So my actual job now is I am a primary special needs teacher. So that's for a school in East Yorkshire. It's in Hessel now. So yeah, so I work there. That's what I do most of the time there in terms of interests. Yeah, wrestling, football, music. Big into rock. Like glam hair metal has always been my big things. Growing up, it was always sort of 70s, 80s, early 90s glam hair metal that I was into, which I still like now. A little bit more country as well. Sort of it, it gets wider and wider. It tends to be around sort of the overarching rock genre, and
Mm.
mostly older stuff. But so I've got a couple of concerts this year going to Iron Maiden,
Oh,
and then going
nice.
to yeah. So I've seen them twice before, but not for years. And then the Def Leppard and Motley Crue concert as well in Sheffield as well, going to that. So they're the only ones I've got currently booked. Um, I'd like to go to Kiss again. I've seen Kiss about
Oh,
7 times, but
wow.
yeah, yeah,
They're on my to-do
yeah.
list as well. They're on my to-do list, but I feel like it's like Aerosmith. Every time I miss them, I'm
Mm.
risking never seeing them again. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Exactly. Well, it's their retirement tour again. I did get to see Aerosmith at Download in 2012. That was
Oh,
yeah, that was the last time I was at Download as well. So that was the last band I've ever seen at Download. And they closed the Sunday night.
awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of community questions as well
Oh God.
from yeah. We opened the door to them earlier, didn't we, with your retweet? So here we are. So who have we got? So let's have a little look. So that was me responding to them on the WrestleSphere account. So we've got a guy called Lord Dave. Great name, Lord Dave. And he says that could be a heel wrestling name. I think Spike Trivet's kind of fits into the post though, hasn't he?
People don't know Dave. He's actually paid to become a lord. He bought like a tiny piece of land so that he could actually have the title Lord. So he's technically actually Lord Dave. Yeah.
Oh, so you know Lord Dave. Lord Dave is
Yeah,
oh right. Right. Well,
I
here you go.
do.
Shout out to Lord Dave. Well, Lord Dave asks, what's been your favourite match in your career and of the last 12 months?
Oh, I don't know. I was really happy with my most recent title defense against Sam Gradwell.
Mm.
Sam is someone who I think I've worked with him in tag matches years ago when I'd very first started wrestling. And Nathan Cruz was taking me out around doing some of the All Star runs, and I worked with him, so I knew him from back then. But then hadn't seen him for years. Obviously, he's been in WWE for the last
Yeah.
6 years. So yeah, working with him was excellent to do again, and that it was a very fun match to have. Great working with him, absolutely brilliant. He's incredible. I really enjoyed. I did a BWI Evo match with Hardman Dan, who is absolutely ridiculously. He's excellent. He's the Evo champion. I think I lost it was the match to crown their first champion, which somehow I ended up losing. But yeah, working with him as well. He's only been around a few years, but everywhere that he's been, he's another great character where people just immediately latch onto. He's done a couple of title shows and working for Fight Factory and for BWR as well. There, he wrestled RKJ main event at one of the BWR made shows and absolutely knocked it out of the park. But yeah, so working with him, they're probably my favourite two in recent memory.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, I'll
Awesome.
probably have
Awesome.
to go with that because yeah,
Well, I thought we had another.
my ladder match with HT Drake as well, just because it was absolutely ridiculous.
I have to watch that one because it sounds
You
like
have to watch it.
it sounds like you would have been better off with the yellow pages than that ladder. For
Oh, it
what
was
you've
amazing.
told
Yeah.
me.
Well, we got to the venue and they didn't have a ladder, and so we were trying to rush around to figure out what we could do. And yeah, I've watched bits of it back, but yeah, it was very different, but an incredible amount of fun to do. And honestly, the finish is unreal.
This is I've been Sam of WrestleSphere. This is Ace Matthews of the Tidal Chief. You can catch us on the Gimme a Whole Year podcast on Wednesdays, and you catch me on Fridays covering SmackDown. Yeah, keep watching our interviews. We've got more of them to come. Ace, thank you again, mate. Chat soon, hopefully.